We are kicking off today with AEW Collision as Swerve Strickland finally got the World Champion segment that he wasn't afforded on AEW Dynamite. Strickland talked about what he wanted to do as AEW World Champion and referenced other moments over the past week in a nice touch. Things the champ brought up included Willow Nightingale's win, Adam Copeland getting misted, and Danielson vs. Ospreay, showing that AEW angles don't exist within a bubble. Strickland then set up an open challenge which was answered by Claudio Castagnoli, and while Collision usually starts with action, this change made a lot of sense. With an NBA audience carrying over, it was a smart way to tell the major stories of AEW to a fresh audience, and Strickland himself came across as the top star of the brand. It wasn't the best the mogul can deliver, but absolutely served its purpose well, and set up the show's main event with Castagnoli. In that match, Castagnoli held nothing back and nearly had the title won with a European uppercut, but Strickland's swerve stomp and house call secured him the win. Despite being announced just over an hour earlier, this match had a big fight feel as Bobby Cruz gave special introductions for the champion and the challenger. The two men fought onto the stage before Swerve sent Claudio all the way to the ring with a head scissors takedown and clothesline in an epic moment that had the fans on their feet. In an insane near fall, Claudio caught the Swerve stomp and turned it into a European uppercut for a near fall, but after his win, Strickland shook hands with Castagnoli. The match result isn't surprising, but this was a phenomenal main event, and Castagnoli will hopefully have a more genuine shot at world title gold when the time is right. As for Strickland, he shouldn't defend the title again until Double or Nothing, and with his opponent to be revealed on Dynamite, there's time to build a great story. Much of AEW Collision was centered around what happened to Tony Khan on Dynamite, as the AEW president was nowhere to be seen on this week's show. After the opening segment with Strickland and Castagnoli, Tony Schiavone announced afterward that Khan cannot travel due to multiple head and neck injuries. He added that Khan will run shows from Jacksonville for the foreseeable future, and Nigel McGuinness questioned who'd settle disputes with Khan not around. The announcement of Khan's injury sets up an interesting question: is AEW ready to have its first true general manager in charge that would ultimately answer to Khan? Assuming it doesn't interfere with his recovery, Kenny Omega would perfectly fit that role, and the EVP is set to make his return on next week's Dynamite in Winnipeg. Hopefully, we'll have some answers soon enough, but what do you think AEW should do with Tony Khan's situation? Let us know in the comments down below. Since around WrestleMania of last year, it's been known that Drew McIntyre's contract was running out, though he did have time added to make up for his post-Mania hiatus. Even in the run-up to this year's WrestleMania, questions surrounded Drew about his future in the ring, and now we have an answer to all this speculation. On Instagram, TKO's The Rock announced that McIntyre has signed a new contract with WWE, and the Scottish Warrior was presented with a Claymore sword as a gift. In his post, The Rock wrote that he's a man of his word, teasing that he'd promised Drew a gift if he re-signed, and now McIntyre is here to stay. It's unclear how long McIntyre's new deal will go for, but it'll keep him around for some time, including the Clash at the Castle Glasgow event on June 15th. McIntyre's contract was set to expire in June, but that's no longer the case, and we'll have to see what role he has in the OVO Hydro Arena in less than 50 days' time. But what do you think of this? Are you pleased to see McIntyre remain with WWE, or should he have tried himself in another, possibly elite promotion? Let us know in the comments. More from AEW Collision now, as the promotion is home to plenty of ex-WWE stars, but last night's show saw not one, not two, but three ex-superstars debut. First up was Martin Stone, who previously wrestled as Danny Burch in WWE, and the former NXT Tag Team Champion took on Roosh. This wasn't just Stone's debut, but was Roosh's return to the promotion, and it was Roosh who got the win over the former NXT alum. Speaking of NXT talent, the grizzled young veterans made their in-ring debut on this week's show, but they came up short against the Acclaimed. It's interesting that Max Caster competed, as it had been reported that he'd been suspended for his pre-Dynasty barb that many saw as making light of the Janelle Grant allegations. Martin Stone, James Drake, and Zach Gibson didn't win this week, but they impressed in their AEW debuts, and perhaps we'll see more of the three ex-WWE names down the line. This past Friday, WWE kicked off its annual draft, but fans were somewhat disappointed with the lack of monumental changes to Raw and SmackDown. Between the TV draft and the supplemental draft, just 7 out of the total 23 picks saw a superstar change brands, which equals to less than a third of the picks so far. There is a reason for this, however, as Fightful Select reports that despite the draft, WWE wanted to maintain a sense of familiarity with its Raw and SmackDown rosters. WWE wanted well-known talent to stay on the show they've been on to ensure a smoother transition for fans, hence why Randy Orton stayed on SmackDown and Seth Rollins on Raw. WWE also didn't want to disrupt current storylines, as it would have been foolish to move Jey Uso to SmackDown, given his status as the next challenger for Damian Priest. With that said, the report adds that more dramatic shifts are expected to happen on night 2 of the draft on Raw, and more NXT talent are expected to be called up. Ilya Dragunov is said to be a lock when it comes to being called up after losing the NXT title to Trick Williams, and the Mad Dragon will seemingly not be alone. But what have you made of the draft so far? Were you disappointed more didn't happen on night 1? And what are your predictions for night 2? Sound off in the comments. One name who did switch brands during night 1 of the WWE draft is Baron Corbin, who was moved from NXT to SmackDown in the supplemental picks. A new brand isn't the only change coming Corbin's way though, as Fightful adds that his move may come with a renewed look, signaling a transformation in his character. Corbin was not at the WWE Performance Center with the NXT roster who were shown watching the draft, and whatever's to come for him will be without Braun Breaker. Despite their popularity, the War Dogs won't team on the main roster, as Braun has been moved to Raw, and time will tell what's in store for the renewed Baron Corbin. We've got some concerning news regarding Darby Allin now, as the AEW staple has found himself in another unfortunate incident. On Instagram, the former TNT champion revealed that he was hit by a bus while trying to cross the street in New York City, but still made it to a Broadway play. This is just the latest health setback for Allin, who suffered a broken foot at AEW Dynamite Big Business when he wrestled Jay White, which has kept him out of action ever since. The injury also meant Allin had to postpone climbing Mount Everest, and with a recent nose injury as well, Darby Allin is certainly feeling worse for wear right now. And we're ending with Nick Nemeth, who's been making his name in various promotions since his WWE release, and now the former Dolph Ziggler is a world champion again. At the Triplemania 32 Monterrey event, Nemeth won the AAA Mega Championship and beat Alberto El Patron to capture the vacated gold. It's ironic that Nemeth beat Patron for the title that had been surrendered by El Hijo del Vikingo, as Nemeth's first world title win came with a win over Patron on Raw in April 2013. Nemeth also currently holds New Japan's IWGP Global Heavyweight title, and now has the AAA Mega title, as the wanted man is taking wrestling by storm outside of WWE.